Robert Eggers' critically acclaimed 2015 film The Witch wears its folk horror influences on its period-appropriate sleeve with its full name, The Witch, a New England Folktale. So, let's journey into the wilderness and explore those tangled roots to unveil the legacy hidden in plain sight in this modern masterpiece. Screen to Scream continues its deep dive into all things horror with an exploration into The Witch, a modern classic, and a true homage to the things that have scared the new Americans since its inception. Before we do that, make sure you subscribe to Graveyard Shift and let us know in the comments which true-life horror stories you'd like for us to cover in the future. It's no mistake that we call it New England, as the English played a huge role in colonization of the area. But we would be missing critical ingredients without the contributions of a variety of other European nations that all added unique voices to American folklore as we understand it today. Notable among those elemental features are the Bavarian and French superstitions that, even today, enter into our own worldview. The Witch is a representation of those fears rarely manifested in Western film, and was met with open arms by a people generally aware yet out of touch with the dark background of the nation. The new understanding that fears of witchery were not limited to Salem came as a surprise to many. And to those in the know, a welcome shot of history to those willing to plumb the depths of colonial fears. Early in the movie, young Samuel disappears after a rousing game of peekaboo with Thomason, as played by the now megastar Anya Taylor-Joy. The resulting tumult of fear is palpable as we further explore the dynamic turns faced by a family banished from a puritanical settlement. All hope of normalcy has been stripped away as the family faces a wild country populated by dangers both real and imagined. As the crops fail and baby Samuel is stolen away by wolves, or worse, we find ourselves in a quagmire of anxiety, of possibly imagined witches in the forest, and blood pacts made with Satan himself. The fear of child abductions in the hands of devil-worshipping witch covens was strong in southern Germany at the time, but was by no means unique to the area. Reports of such activity have been documented throughout Europe and in the New World in the 1600s. This was often an unfortunate expression of institutional sexism, and the accused were more often than not women that failed to meet the standards set by the dogmatic church, and powerful men of the era hell-bent on making sure that their positions of power were maintained at any cost. The question of whether this is the case in The Witch is complicated by several graphic cutscenes that seem to reveal that Samuel was indeed stolen away by a witch and summarily churned into a solve. Perhaps one of the most direct points of origin for Eggers' influence is the case of Grace Sowerbutts. In 1612 Lancashire, England, teenage Grace accused 3 women of transporting her to the countryside, where she was forced to dance and have sex with strange creatures, described only as 4 black things going upright, and yet not like men in the face. What's worse, Sowerbutts asserted that the witches had stolen a sleeping baby from a neighboring home and had sucked away its life force through its navel, burying its remains in a field. Grace reported that later they dug up the infant corpse, roasted it, and ate parts, saving the rendered fat to be used as ointments of flight and shapeshifting. Grace continued later to even accuse both her grandmother and aunt of turning themselves into dogs and haunted and vexed her for years. The court rejected the girl's story, finding it too far-fetched even for the superstitious times, even with the testimony of Thomas Walshman attesting that his child did indeed pass from unknown causes, and that Grace had been found in a death-like state in a barn the following morning. Whether Grace had participated in a dark cannibalistic ritual or not, clearly the events detailed in this case influenced the opening acts in The Witch. Hardship was a defining characteristic of life faced by early American settlers. Those bold enough to see a new life in New England were often unprepared for the conditions that awaited them on the other side of the Atlantic. Beset with issues of crop failure, environmental challenges, and new diseases, the primarily Protestant colonists found their faith tested at every turn. In one of the more soulful moments of humanity shown in The Witch, Catherine, matriarch of the family living in exile, expresses a desire to return to England. The rigors of living in this new place, including the disappearance of her youngest child and the lack of quality yield of corn, has crushed her dreams of finding a better life. Naturally, when hardship arises, we look for reasons. For many, those casual factors find root in the supernatural. The devil, Lucifer, Satan, by whatever name you call him, is seen by many as the great deceiver responsible for everything from suffering to temptation. For colonial Americans, the great beast seemed to be hiding in every dark corner, seeking souls to deliver into hell. When Samuel went missing, one of the great laments of his family was that he had yet to be baptized. This was a subject of great concern, as the belief was that the unbaptized would not have access to the kingdom of God in the afterlife. Whether taken by wolf or witches of the wood, Samuel would now be in the hands of the Dark One and subjected to the torturous eternity of damnation. The desire to find Samuel and protect him from such a ghastly fate only serves to further complicate matters for the family. One could easily make an argument that the characters of the witch each represent one or more of the 7 deadly sins. The more glaring would be lust, as represented by Caleb. While there is no mention of these offenses in the Bible, these sins are often considered the basis for immorality among Christians. With the central family so adherent to the structure of their Protestant faith, it is no wonder that these offenses are central to their plight. Caleb and Thomasin are both in the cusp of adolescence, Thomasin having just had her first period, and Caleb clearly has begun to notice the changes in his sister's body. When Caleb and Thomasin secretly embark into the woods in search of their missing brother, they soon find themselves separated. In the case of Caleb, only to be enchanted by a beautiful witch. The representation of the witch as an enchantress harkens to fairy tales that remain very much in contemporary conversation. Perhaps most notably due to Disney and its representations of witches of folklore. Be it through lustful beauty, the offering of a delicious apple, or in this case both, someone discovering their sexuality can be easy pickings. After falling victim to the lustful advances of the witch, Caleb remains missing for some time. Thomasin, having managed to return to her family, discovers her brother naked and in a trance-like state sometime later. While in this state, the boy is treated with bloodletting, an ancient practice of delivering a cut to a victim in hopes of releasing whatever evil spirit may have caused the affliction. Bloodletting is a practice over 3,000 years old, having only been discredited in the late 19th century. When the bloodletting fails to revive young Caleb, Thomasin's impish twin siblings place blame on her squarely for bewitching her brother. Not long after Samuel had gone missing, overwhelmed by the stress of work and chided by the twins claiming themselves the witch of the wood, Thomasin had ones that she would now have to face. During the exchange, the twins put on quite the show, writhing on the floor as Caleb screams for his lord to redeem him, finally spitting from his mouth a small apple. Echoing Snow White, this apple serves as a powerful tableau, both in reference to the Brother Grimm's celebrated tale, as well as the temptation offered forth by the serpent of the Garden of Eden, resulting in man's exile, and an awareness of sin. The aforementioned twins, Mercy and Jonas, have a favorite animal on the farm, an all-black goat who just might be Satan himself, Black Phillip. The duo sang songs in his honor and had made claims that he often whispered to them throughout the day. Upon being accused, Thomasin points to this as proof that it is in fact the twins who are responsible for dark tidings faced by the family, in league with Satan via their billy goat buddy. The goat has often been cited as one of the devil's favorite forms, Baphomet, an androgynous hybrid of human and goat, being among the most iconic representations of the Dark Lord. Even this form is likely in reference to older gods like Pan and the satyrs of Greek mythology, and pagan fertility gods before that. Black Phillip took the world by storm, coming to represent for many the redemption of Thomasin, as in later in the film it is revealed that the he-goat may in fact actually be Lucifer indeed. With the family fractured by accusations of witchery, Caleb passes after a violent seizure that saw him jump from agony to ecstasy as he breathed his final breaths. Having run out of options, all the family could manage to do is pray feverishly as yet another among them perished. The idea of children causing witch hunt hysteria is again nothing new, as these kinds of accusations from young parties were behind tragic events including the Salem witch trials and in the interesting case of Anne Cole. In 1662, Hartford, Connecticut, 8-year-old Bethia succumbed to an inexplicable disease. When rumors started to circulate about Nathaniel and Rebecca Greensmith's purported involvement in witchcraft, their young neighbor Anne began to suffer fits said to be caused by their demonic influence. When Anne accused Nathaniel of being behind this darkness, the community rallied behind her, leading even Nathaniel's own wife Rebecca to agree that her husband was indeed a witch. The Greensmiths found their end at the gallows along with at least 2 others, based solely on the accusations of a child. The oral tradition of storytelling has been one of the most important factors in the development of culture and the preservation of values for humans since we developed the ability to communicate. It is through these allegorical tales that we are able to track what our ancestors held dear, as well as the roots of their fears. While humanity has continued to make strides toward a more scientific explanation for many of the tragedies that we once blamed on devils and witches, ours continues to a culture that fears the other in a variety of forms. Yesterday's witch hunts are today's unfounded biases and prejudices. Part of what makes the witch work is how easily one can realize that the folk in folk horror are regular people like you and me. People who have failed to find the truth, and in effort to make sense of loss and grief, we assign blame. Are the supernatural elements of the witch real or symbolic? Is the entire film a dark mirror reflecting our current inequities back at us? Or is Black Phillip really seeking our name for his book so we can ride off on a baby batter broomstick with other freaks of the night? The choice is yours. Which do you fear more? So, what do you think? Is there a secret truth lurking behind these urban legends that inspired the witch? Does knowing about this folklore change the way you view the film? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget, like, share, and subscribe for more videos from The Graveyard Shift.